All right. Welcome, everyone, to the second episode of the Conflict of Interest Generations podcast, where each week we break down an entertainment topic, whether it is a movie review, a TV show review, or what have you.
Why do we call it conflict of interest, Mr. D?
Because there are differing opinions with the different people in the podcast. I'm Derek. I'm joined with.
Kyle.
And I'm Jim. I am the dad of Kyle and Derek, so that's why it's a Generations podcast.
Okay. So, this week I'd like to start out. We could do some news topics really fast, some entertainment based news topics. To start, I figured we might talk about. I know one of us doesn't care, but Gareth Edwards has just left Godzilla 2 recently, which pushed the movie back until 2019. So that's so that upsets me because I'm a big Godzilla fan, and I would
It, up-
like it if the movie came out sooner.
it upsets me too because, from what you've told me, that pushes back all the follow up efforts, including King Kong versus Godzilla, which is the one I'm dying to see.
Yeah, I think me and you both are waiting for that one the most. Yeah, from what I've been able to tell, it sounds like that one's been delayed slightly uh, for the updated release date of Godzilla 2, which is a whole year later. So, um, but at least Godzilla vs Kong is only pushed back a couple months.
Well, that's good at least.
Yeah. Uh,
Yep, and I really couldn't care.
okay, and so the next thing I had, Dad, I know you were telling me after seeing Civil War, the movie we're going to be talking about today, you were telling me that one trailer in particular stuck out to you, and that was Rogue One. So,
Yes. So I thought that Rogue One looks awesome. The newest one, The Force Awakens, I thought was an okay movie. But I thought it was a big retread of the first movie, Episode 4, New Hope, and so this Rogue One looks like it takes place in between Episode 3 and Episode 4, which means Darth Vader would be around. They're building the Death Star. I thought it looked super cool. I'm excited for that one. What do you guys think?
yeah, I think that one looks different to say the least, and different is a good thing because I don't want more of the same. I like the fact that this one's trying to take a different approach. It's going to be a war movie. It's not going to have any Jedi from what they've said, so I think it'll be interesting to just see how the people have to deal with the threat that is Darth Vader and the Emperor and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've only ever watched the trailer one or two times, I think. I'm trying to pull it up now so I can kind of refresh it in my mind, but can't quite get it to load. Um, I'm not sure how much I'm gonna like it though. I mean, I know I used to love Star Wars, but it's not as big to me anymore. And one where there's not like any lightsaber battles, from what I can tell, I don't know how much I'll enjoy that.
Yeah, that'll be different, but and I know that I've heard that Darth Vader's not necessarily going to be a prime character if he even appears at all. But it would be awesome if he did because James Earl Jones does the voice, and so Darth Vader, would still be basically the same character he's always been. Um, and it would be really cool to see him in the middle of all that. But even if not, I'm sure it'll be a lot about the Empire, and I think the Emperor is going to be in it in some fashion. But I just think it'll be cool. I'm looking forward to that one. I think that'll be good.
And also, this was kind of a good segue because Gareth Edwards is also working on Rogue One. He's the one who directed Godzilla 2014 and left 2019. So I think it's interesting um, that he did these two big budget movies. He's really good at showing scale in his movies. He knows how to. That's one thing he did really well in Godzilla was he showed just how big these things are, and we saw a little bit of that in the Rogue One trailer when we saw the AT-ATs running through the desert. But
Well, there was another scene too where they were putting that big dish-looking thing in the middle of the Death Star, you could just get an idea of how massive that thing was. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and so I think it's really interesting because he's really good. I think he's a really good director. He's good at making you care for the human characters, and yet he's recently said that one of the reasons he left Godzilla 2 is because he's done with these big blockbuster movies. He's done just yeah, he's just done. He wants to go work on small projects and not really be told what to do. He wants creative freedom.
Well, hopefully it'll be good.
Ho-
Hopefully,
Hopefully.
hopefully Rogue One will be good. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I'm actually watching the trailer right now, and I think what I'm most excited about is all the old ships. It looks like because in the new one they didn't have any of the Imperial ships, because the Empire had fallen. But this one they're all back, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And whatever their planet on, or whatever planet they are on, that's like the almost jungle planet. I think that looks really cool. It's kind of cool to see the big AT-ATs on that too, rather than because I think they were just in Hoth the last time.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
there was one on Endor.
They were stop motion last time too. That's the other cool thing is that I know Force Awakens did this a little bit, but not even close to what this movie looks like it's doing. Is it looks like it's taking 70s technology and filming it with a modern camera, like how it would look if they could film how we can, and they had the special effects that we have. That's what it kind of looks like they're doing here, and I think that'd be really cool to see.
Yep. I'm looking forward to that one.
Now let's all talk about something we're not looking forward to: the Ghostbusters trailer. That one,
Oh,
that one shocked me in theaters. It shocked me that people laughed at that. And before anyone gets mad, no, we're not sexist. No, we're not just mad because it's a female cast. I know a lot of people have been saying that. That's not why people are mad about this movie. I'm mad, personally, because Ghostbusters was a great movie. It was a classic. It didn't need to be remade. And they did it anyways. And it's just going to ruin the franchise. So, I don't know. I think it was a huge misstep.
uh, what what do you say prompted this movie? Like, why is this happening?
Okay, so essentially everyone but Bill Murray has been trying to get Ghostbusters 3 off the ground for so long, and he was unwilling to do it. And then they did a recent video game of Ghostbusters a couple of years back that was similar to that Telltale Back to the Future game, from what I've heard. I've never played it. Um, so I heard it was similar to that, and it had all the original cast back doing the voices, and Bill Murray seemed more open to it, and then kind of teased that he was gonna do Ghostbusters 3 for the longest time, and then basically said no, he's not gonna do a feature length movie. And then when they asked him if he'd do a reboot, he said he'd do a cameo in it. So then they kind of greenlit the idea to do a reboot, all because of him, it seems like.
Well, almost all of the surviving original actors from Ghostbusters are cameos in this movie, but they don't play the characters they did originally, I guess.
Yeah, I think this is a whole new universe.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest with you guys. I mean, um, I there were definitely I agree that it's a movie that does not need to be remade. The first one was great, and why go back to the well again? But I'm a little bit curious, I guess, about this one. I'm not too sure how eager I am to spend $10 at a movie theater, but seeing it on cable or Netflix or something, I don't know. I'm a little more hopeful that maybe it's kind of good and sort of an updated, fun movie, but
I really don't know how that could happen because the Ghostbusters comedy in the original one was just I
It
don't
was
know. It
smart.
seemed so yeah. It's
It was
clever
clever.
comedy, but then in this one you've got what the Leslie Nelson I think her name is the black lady getting on top of like Kristen Wiig I think or maybe it was Melissa McCarthy and like slapping her to get the ghost out of her. It seems so easy and like I don't know. It's not clever comedy, so I think it's really gonna ruin things.
And
It could. It could. I actually worked at a movie theater back when the original Ghostbusters came out. I was in high school, and I remember that movie just blowing everybody away. It was just like the movie of 1984, and I think it's because of that. Maybe I'm a little more sentimental. I mean, I guess I should be protective of it and not wanting it ruined, but there's also part of me that kind of hopes that maybe they could recapture the magic of that first one in some new way. That would be good, but who knows? I get all of your concerns, and I can't say I disagree.
yeah, I just think the problem is this is just Ghostbusters was a great movie. It was really funny, and this movie is just a Melissa McCarthy comedy.
Yeah.
All of them are the same movies over and over again, where she plays the same character over and over again, and I, for when I'm sick of it, I don't think she's funny. I'm done with those movies in general. I just wish we could have gotten something else.
Yeah, I get it.
All right. And so now on to the other thing that I am not excited for, but you two are, which is Star Wars or Star Trek Beyond, the upcoming Star Trek movie that is released later this year.
I I was not a big fan of the first trailer that came out. They were playing a Beastie Boys song, and it was all kind of hyped up action. The most recent trailer that came out was a little more intriguing to me. It looked a little more serious and dark. But it's Star Trek, so what can I say? I'm excited to see it come out. I hope it's good. 50th anniversary of when the original show started, and here it is 50 years later. They're still making movies and more TV shows, and I just hope it's great, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I don't like Star Trek. I don't know why. I just don't. I don't think it's good. I didn't. I originally liked the 2009 movie somewhat. I thought it was decent, but I don't think that anymore. I think Into Darkness was good, except that it was very predictable. Um, so I was hoping, because the trend seemed to be that with both the J.J. Abrams movies, they seemed to get better as they went. Both, like, the first one was okay. The second one was, I would actually watch it, and so I was hoping that if he did a third one, that it'd actually be really good. And then, considering the fact that he did Force Awakens, which is a movie that I thought was really good, I had hope, even though at that point I knew he wasn't gonna do it. He wasn't gonna do the next Star Trek, but at the very least, it shows that he could do a movie like that and make it good. But I don't know. I think with the new director, the guy who did the Fast and Furious movies, I don't think any of those were good movies. I feel like this one lost a lot of the momentum, changing directors. It's going to change tone entirely, and I don't think it'll hold up at all.
I have worries specifically about the director because I know all the Fast and Furious movies. I've seen, God, like 20 minutes of part six, I think. And the very beginning of that whole movie was just like every action movie cliche you could fit into 20 minutes of a movie. And I'm hoping that this one's not like that. From the trailers, it doesn't look to be like that. So I'm hopeful for it. There's things in the trailer that kind of concerns me, like I don't know who it is, but there's someone on that alien planet that's like driving a motorcycle around everywhere, and I'm not
That's
sure where that's coming from. I'm not sure what that's gonna be. I'm not sure that that's gonna be good, but
that is Kirk. That's Kirk driving the motorcycle.
Yep, that's what I understand too.
Um, Here's the thing that I had questions about in the trailers, in this newest one specifically. I have a question about the poster and the font of the movie. Why is it so bright, colorful, rainbow splash? It looks like the Suicide Squad movie. Um, so I think that's what I'm talking about. The tone changed entirely, and I don't know if that's going to be a good thing. It just looks too colorful, and I don't know. And then the other thing is, what is the deal with that scene where the Enterprise is flying through space and like space behind it is bending as the Enterprise moves? And yeah, you could say, oh, that's just the Enterprise in warp speed, but then why have we never seen that in the 50 years that Star Trek's been around? Why is it just now that they decided to throw that in there?
Yeah, it's hard to say kind of thing that might be that they're going through. I think that's what it's supposed to represent, is the Enterprise going through some barrier of some kind. But I don't know. It's the tone of it'll certainly change with the director, but there were reports early on that people at Paramount wanted something closer to Guardians of the Galaxy. They wanted
that
something
makes
like
sense.
that. Yeah. And so the original director that they were going to bring in was Bob Orsi, who was one of the writers of the first two JJ movies. And I was a little bit excited about that because he is like of the people in the reboots, he was the one that was the self-proclaimed like hardcore original series fan, and he was the one that brought a lot of that to the project. So I thought with him as director, it could be all kinds of good things for those of us that are looking for threads. We don't, I think we're tired of seeing the kind of rehash of things that have happened before, but we like the threads that sort of take us back, whether it's tone or storytelling or whatever. And I think that's what he was going to bring. And then all of a sudden he was just off the project. Paramount took him off, threw his script away. And then they redid it. Now Simon Pegg is one of the writers of this one, and he plays Scotty now. And I guess he also is a self-proclaimed big-time original series fan. And he feels like he's done a lot to try to capture the tone of the original series and be faithful to it. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. I don't know, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it'll be good and carry on and be a springboard for more, because it's definitely. I think they've got good things going now.
Yeah, and I also heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that Simon Pegg really hated that very first trailer that came out, the one that everyone hated.
Yeah.
I heard that he was not happy with it, and so he kind of helped create this new trailer that is being received much better. People seem to like it a lot more.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Okay, so that's really all I had to talk about, other than X-Men Apocalypse came out the 27th. That was Friday. So, whenever we have all seen it, we will come out and do the next episode of the podcast, because this one has been delayed for so long. So, they'll have to come out probably closer together than usual. So then that's really all I had to say about that. So, now let's get into Civil War.
Stay down. Final warning. I could do this all day.
All right, I've run out of patience. On to roost!
Hey everyone.
You guys ready?
I'm ready.
Anything else you want to say?
Yeah.
All right. So I figured we'd start with the characters first, and what better way to do that than with the best team on the movie, Team Iron Man.
Wrong.
Yeah. Woohoo.
Okay, so let's just start out with talking about Tony. What do you guys think of him? I thought he was great in this movie. I think Tony Stark has kind of turned into just this one-line slinging joke of a character almost, where he's just there as kind of the comic relief, and I feel like this movie kind of brought him back to Iron Man 1, when you felt sympathetic for him, when he was an actual relatable, real-life character that, I don't know, I really liked him. And I thought his motivations towards the end of the movie were really good, with the whole reveal at the end. And I don't know. I for one, personally agree with him more so than I do with Captain America.
Yeah, as the other member of the family here on Team Iron Man, for sure. I guess I didn't really see Iron Man sort of devolving into a one-liner kind of character, but I get where you're coming from. I always felt like Tony Stark and Iron Man, and the way Robert Downey Jr. plays him, has always been like the most the fun and most intriguing part of this whole Marvel universe that they've got going ever since the first Iron Man. So I thought, again, in this movie he was great. I do want to at some point talk about a little bit of a role reversal thing with him and Steve Rogers, but just generally speaking, I think Tony's character was very well done, and I thought all of his motivations were pretty believable.
Yeah, I it's not that I didn't like Iron Man in the other movies. I'm just saying I think it's good to see him be a real person again. Good to see him back down to earth and relatable.
Yeah.
Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, Iron Man's tough for me because I thought the first Iron Man movie was really good. Um, I thought the second and third ones weren't great. The third one was all right, but um, and then I don't really know. Well, in the Avengers, he was cool, but I don't know how much I liked him in this one. He he didn't really do too much, I think, through the whole movie. He wasn't a very big part, and I mean, I know it's a Captain America movie, but a lot of the time in the movie, he was just kind of the desk boy, is what they made him into. And I know that all comes with his motivation in the movie, but still, like, kind of like you guys said, it's such a switch for him that I, I don't know. I liked it, but I didn't like it at the same time. So,
I thought it was a very believable switch. I think he's dealing with a lot with. He definitely feels responsible because he created Ultron and Ultron killed thousands of people, and so he feels a great level of guilt for that, and so I think it's a believable shift for him to to say enough is enough. I'm just gonna start listening and stop causing too much trouble.
Yeah, I thought
uh, you said you like his motivations. What did you see his motivations as, though? Because I took it a different way than you guys took it.
His motivations to me was just he was powered by guilt. That's even brought up at one point in the beginning of the movie when he bumps into a woman in the hallway who talks about how her son was this really smart kid. He graduated college or something. He had this whole plan to help the world basically, and then he was killed in Sokovia, and so the girl tells him that she feels like he's only helping all these students because at the beginning of the movie he's funding all these students with their inventions or whatever, and the woman tells him that she feels like it's just that he's powered by guilt, and I think that's exactly what it is. I think he just feels I think he just is kind of almost hating himself for what he did, and so he's trying to right his wrongs.
yeah, see, I saw it a lot that way too because he had traditionally been the anti-establishment guy. He was the guy that played by his own rules. You know, if somebody had handed him a subpoena or something, he wouldn't take it. He just was in defiance of everything. In this movie, he's made a big switch. He's the guy now on the conformist side. The government wants to rein in the Avengers, and he's all for it. And I think that because of the guilt over Ultron and whatever's going on with him and Pepper, I felt like it made sense to me that he was pushed so far that he was giving in like, okay, I'm willing to go along to get along because we do need checks and balances. We're getting way too out of control. And that's a big character switch for him that seemed believable to me.
Um, I agree that part of his motivation was feeling guilty. But the there's the scene mid movie where he's talking to Captain America and he's all upset because him and Pepper are broken up, and he's like, I'm doing this so that I could prove to her that I'm like a better man now and stuff like that. And so kind of they almost weakened his reasoning by doing that and having him say that. And like it would have made sense if they just left it kind of at his feeling of guilt, but I feel like they did that because I don't know why, but I'm sure Gwyneth Paltrow didn't want to be in this, or they couldn't write her into it or something. Do you guys know why she wasn't in the movie?
They didn't want to get her. She was all for it, and they didn't want to get her, so they wrote her out of it.
Yeah, so it's like just because they don't want her in the movie, it kind of ruined it a little bit with him saying that he's doing it to try and get her back. But
I
yeah,
think you're
I mean,
kind of misunderstanding the scene. I think he was. That may have been his excuse, but to me it felt more like he was trying to prove it to himself, because he talks about how in Iron Man 3 at the end he blows up all his suits. He talks about how he did that and how he was trying to change for her, but then he couldn't because he didn't want to. And I think he's trying to prove it to himself that he is a better man, that he's not the same guy who just makes weapons and supplies them to terrorists without knowing. He's not that guy anymore. He's a better man, and I think
it's weird because whether they want to write him as not understanding that or not, it's like everyone else knows that he is like he's doing the right thing, and that without Iron Man, you know, the Chitauri would have taken over and everything. And I don't know. It just I'm not sure I enjoyed his motives as much as you guys did. I thought that they were a little weak.
I don't know that I enjoyed them necessarily, but I bought them. I felt like it made sense. You know, to me, I like the defiant Tony Stark. I like the guy that has so much money and so much ego that he doesn't have to play by anybody else's rules. I actually like that guy. And I don't necessarily like the conformist Tony Stark, but I get it. I get how he got there. And to me that made sense.
yeah. Um so I guess moving to the next character, which is Rhodes, aka War Machine. What'd you guys think of him? I thought he was. It's good to see him back. He was in Age of Ultron. He actually did stuff in Age of Ultron, unlike Falcon, who we'll talk about later. But I thought it was good to see him. He took Tony's side, just shows how good of a friend he is to him, and I liked him in this movie. And then with the thing that happens to him later on, when he gets crippled and all that happens, I felt bad for him too. So I don't know. I also found him believable that he was willing to stand with Tony, and he's a former soldier, so I thought it made perfect sense that he was willing to take up the Sokovia Accords.
So is the character in the comics, does he have an Iron Man suit too? Is that the deal? They're kind of buddies in Iron Man suits together?
I would assume so. I'm not that familiar with the comics.
You have any idea, Kyle?
No, not really. I
So
think so though.
so I liked the character in the very first movie because he was part of the military, and when Tony's doing all of his stuff, you know, he's kind of on the inner circle, and it's driving him crazy because Tony's out there fighting with fighter planes and all that. When he started getting into the Iron Man suit, because I thought the Iron Man suit had to be powered by that thing in Tony's chest. I thought that's what powered the suit. And so when everybody can wear a suit and they put it on that guy, yeah, it just lost something to me. I that character to me is just like Iron Man, the other guy. And I like the thought of there being one Iron Man, one guy who can actually run the suits, one guy who can do it. Not that anybody can just get in it and do it. So the character doesn't really advance anything for me ever since the first movie. So I'm not a huge Rhodes fan.
Oh, um, I don't know. I think he gets better as the movies go on. Um, yeah,
I'm trying to find it now when he first appeared in the comics, but to me it looks like he's a fairly recent character, almost as if he was made for Iron Man 2. Because I can't.
um, he was very
Oh,
first.
no. Yeah, first appearance 1979, so I guess
Well, yeah. Well,
he's a pretty old
that's the
character.
character's first appearance. His first appearance as War Machine was in 1992. So he's recent as far as comics go.
Yeah, but I agree. I feel like the fact that basically anyone can be Iron Man kind of cheapens Iron Man a little bit because I mean, you can't have more than one Thor, you can't have more than one Hulk, really. I mean, you could
Well,
have the Abomination, kind of, but you
there's
know,
the Abomination. There's Red Hulk. There's more
But
than one
I
Hulk.
mean, okay, but still, like you could have basically an infinite amount of Iron Mans, which is I think part of the reason I didn't like the second movie because that's really what it was all about was people capitalizing on the idea of Iron Man and building unmanned soldiers that were Iron Man and could do anything Iron Man could do. So
That's why I liked the second movie because it felt realistic. Like you'd have to think in a real world that would happen, and it wouldn't make sense if it didn't happen. That'd be a huge plot hole if no one else attempted to make an Iron Man suit, or no one else became Iron Man. No one else got in a suit. It wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean that because I totally get that. You had a piece of technology like the Iron Man suit. Every government's going to want
Yeah,
that.
it's like the nuclear bomb when
Yeah.
that was created, and then that started the whole arms race, which led to like the Cold War and all that stuff was happening when they were just testing hydrogen bombs, making them bigger and bigger. That's kind of what I feel like it's a realistic step for this world. That
It is, but if like I said before, if the only thing that could power the suit was that
I
unique
think
piece
I
of
think it
technology,
was that it was just the nuclear power in general, just the fact that the suit is powered by a nuclear core. I don't think it was specifically his chest piece. That was only keeping the shrapnel out of his heart. That wasn't.
well, didn't it power the first suit though that he when he broke out of the prison and
Yeah, that's in the first movie. They talk about how like the arc reactor was he was building mini arc reactor. He had one in his chest. One was powering that big building he was working with, and so I think.
yeah,
And
see,
then
and
and
I
then the
always
second movie he like perfects it. He creates the triangle one, and now at this point he just has them built into the suit, not his body. So I don't know. I think it's fine. I think it's makes sense.
it may make sense. I just think it would have been better if that was truly Tony's leverage over the whole thing. Is that without the arc reactor, you can't have a suit. It doesn't work, and he's the only guy that has it. He because even that in the first movie, the bad guy steals it from him, takes it out of his chest, and
Yeah.
that's how he powers up his suit. So I liked that idea that Tony kind of had control that way. But like I said, if everybody can replicate it and everybody can make a suit, then it makes Iron Man less special in my view. Tony Stark is always unique, but Iron Man as a piece of technology becomes something anybody can have, and it just doesn't seem as cool to me. I like so I don't. I'm not a big Rhodes fan because if he's not wearing the suit, what good is he? But I did like him in the first movie because he was kind of trying to be Tony's conscience, and he was the guy on the inside trying to keep Tony's secret a little bit. And I thought it was a fun dynamic in the first movie.
Okay, and now we're going to talk about Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow. She's the other carryover character. She was introduced in Iron Man 2, so she's kind of been around longer than anyone else on Iron Man's team other than Rhodes and Tony. So, what do you guys think of her? I thought she was kind of very predictable. The whole thing where at the end of the movie she changes sides, I saw that coming a
Oh.
million miles away. I would have preferred if it was someone else who switched sides. I don't know.
that was she was quite possibly my least favorite character in the movie. In this one, I mean, she had never really been one of my favorites, and I think it's just kind of the downfall of not being one of the main Avengers. But she in this movie, she just kind of annoyed me with how much she was like, I'm. She's like, Steve, I'm with you, but I'm not with you. I'm gonna go sign the accord, but I see where you're coming from. And then she's like, now we're into the Civil War, so I'm gonna take Iron Man's side because I have to. And then in the end, she's like, nope, I'm going back to Captain America. She kind of drove me crazy in this movie.
Yeah, her whole flip flop thing I didn't like too much.
Yeah, I'm the same. I just can't get past the fact that I love her. That actress is beautiful, and I love her. So I can't really say anything bad about her.
Okay.
That's that's all. That's what it boils down to, boys. Sorry, but I can't get past that.
The last character who wasn't introduced in this movie on Iron Man's team is the Vision, who is kind of the embodiment of Jarvis, and I didn't like what they did with him in this movie. I'm gonna be honest. I know it's comic accurate, but I don't care if it's comic accurate. I don't like what they're doing with him. I think he was better off. He was better off in Age of Ultron when he was like just this like super strong, very cool kind of cyborg who went around and killed like dozens of the Ultrons. I thought he was really cool in that movie. And then this movie, they try to humanize him, which I get it. He's artificial intelligence. They're going to humanize him, but I don't know. I didn't like it too much.
I thought there comes a point in this movie, and it's fairly early on, where there's so many characters to keep track of, so many things going on, and somehow in the X-Men movies they always seem to um, keep that information in a way that you can follow who these guys are and what their powers are and what they do. This movie either assumed that everybody watching was one of the fans of the comics, or really remembered all the movies that had come before. Because when he showed up in this movie, it took me a while to remember. I'm like, well, that sounds like Tony Stark's computer voice. And then I'm like, oh, that's right. In Age of Ultron, he turned into some other creature of some kind. So I found it confusing. I thought that it gets to be too much. It's too many characters after a while. It's too many superheroes. And I didn't feel like I can't really remember what he did that advanced the plot in any real substantial way. So to me, it was just having him there to have him there.
You were going to love Infinity War. They're bringing all of the characters together.
Yeah, that one's supposed to have like the Avengers, the Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man. It's gonna be absolutely packed with characters.
I think the problem with this movie is I don't think it's this is one of my only complaints of this movie is I don't think it stands alone. I don't think it's a standalone story. I think you have to definitely be familiar with the other ones in order to get what's going on here.
I agree wholeheartedly, and that was rough for me in this movie because I hadn't seen Captain America 2. I only saw it once with you guys, and then I didn't remember really much of it. And then Age of Ultron, even though I'd seen that one more recently, I still there's so much going on in that movie that I couldn't really remember all of it. And so when this movie starts off, oh, about the first half of it, I was lost trying to figure out who all these people were and why the relations were the way that they were. I think this one really relies on knowledge of the comics and or the prior movies. You have to be really rooted in that if you're going to see this one and be able to follow it.
Yeah, one of the other things that they did with Vision that I didn't like is they gave him a romance with Scarlet Witch or Wanda, whatever her last name is. I know that's also
Maximoff.
yeah, Wanda Maximoff. That's a thing from the comic also, but where Vision and her have a relationship. I'm pretty sure at one point they have a kid. I could be wrong, but I think they do. But I don't know. I thought it came out of nowhere. We didn't ever see it happen on screen, so. And it was never really confirmed in this movie either. You were just supposed to, I think, assume that it was going on based off some of the scenes we got between them.
Yeah, I am not a huge fan of all these Avengers kind of hooking up with each other. Like you've got Black Widow and Hulk now have a thing, kind of. I mean, it's just it feels kind of weird.
Yeah. So moving on. Here's a character I really liked who was introduced in this movie. I can't wait for his solo movie. It was Black Panther. I thought it was great. I thought the CG on him was a little wonky at some points, like during that tunnel chase. I thought some of that didn't look great. But for the most part, I thought he was amazing.
Yeah, I thought he was okay. I had no idea who he was. I don't know anything about that character, so I didn't have any kind of fanboy reaction like, oh great, there's Black Panther in the movie or something. I just kept seeing character after character after character after character after character going on this thing, and it was just hard to keep track of. I thought he was okay. He was a little more substantial than some of the other ones were, so I felt like he was appropriate for the movie. But If I never see him again, so be it.
I thought he was pretty cool. I think it's really cool the way his suit is made of vibranium, the same material that Cap's shield is made of. I thought that was cool to see, like, the fact that he could do damage to it and that he was bulletproof, and he's also royalty, so he gets away with a lot of stuff. He's the king of his country, which is why during that whole tunnel chase, when at the end they're all captured, he's just able to get off, like, he's got a get out of jail free card or something. I don't know. I liked him.
He I'm almost indifferent about him. It's not that I didn't like him or particularly liked him. I'm just kind of on the same boat with Dad, where I watched those old animated Avengers movies with you a couple times, but I really can't even remember him. I remember
Yeah, he was a big
in
character.
those.
He was a big character in the second movie, and that's why I liked him
Yeah,
so much. Was because it
I
was cool to
see
see him.
you've got kind of the background to him, and you know things about him, and you grew up not really, like you weren't a Black Panther hardcore fan, but still at that age you liked him, and I really didn't watch those, and I didn't care about him. So in this movie, I'm kind of the same, where it's like, yeah, he was there, and he kind of did things, but not really at the same time.
Yeah, if anyone's confused as to what we're talking about those old early 2000 cartoons. The Avengers. They had three of them. They had the first two, which had the main characters, and then the third one was the kids. So, just in case you were confused about what was going on. So now on to everyone's favorite character, Spider-Man. I thought he was
Nope.
great.
I agree. This version of Spider-Man I thought was a lot of fun. That kid I thought had a lot of charisma. I thought he was very funny. The movie took a very good tone when Spider-Man showed up. It was Batman v Superman was really a dark movie, and I'm okay with that. I like that being more kind of gritty and dark, and I'm okay with that. But to me, that's the DC universe. It's designed that way, and the Marvel universe is designed a little more bright, a little more fun, a little more tongue in cheek. And I thought when Spider-Man showed up, especially when he got into the battles, I really thought he brought that element big time. And so the fights that could have been very dark and ugly turn out to be fun and funny, while well done. Still, they're very good fight scenes, but there was at least a lighter tone to it than when Batman's beating the brains out of Superman. That just got very dark. But this movie stayed with a lighter tone, and I'm looking forward big time to the new Spider-Man standalone movie.
Oh yeah, I thought Tom Holland was really good. And in the beginning, I thought he was good, but I figured I need to see more from him. But I mean, this movie has been pirated by so many people that all you have to do is type in Spider-Man Civil War into YouTube, and you can watch all of his scenes, which is what I've done multiple times. And the more I watch all the scenes with him over and over again, the more I really like his character. I think I might be starting to agree with everyone else that he might be the best on-screen Spider-Man that we've had, which is saying something because I really liked Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man.
Uh, you say that he kind of lightened the fight scenes, but you still have like the moment when Black Widow and Hawkeye are in that fight, and they're like, "Oh, we're still friends, right?" Like there's still light tones to the whole thing, and I think
Yeah, Ant-Man brought that too.
Spider-Man's,
Ant-Man
yes,
brought a lot.
Spider-Man's almost like non-stop trying to spit these comedical lines kind of bugged me, because he didn't really say anything cool. He was just like, every single thing he said was supposed to be for a comedic reason, which really isn't how I see Spider-Man. Spider-Man's not like I know he's got the the tone, like the upbeat tone to him, and he does things like that, but it just seemed too much. Like every single thing he said was supposed to make us laugh, and that's really not how I'd want that to be. Plus, I think the kid playing him is just too he's too young and too small. I liked Andrew Garfield and I liked Tobey Maguire. They both felt like Spider-Man to me, but he just seems too small.
I have a counter for both the things you said.
Okay.
So yeah, he's small, he's young, he's got the voice that you hate, but that's because he's a kid. Spider-Man's supposed to be a kid. It's okay that they cast him as a kid because it's comic accurate. It's accurate. It's the very first on-screen Spider-Man who's not a 30-year-old playing a 17-year-old. So it makes perfect sense that he's the way he is, and he's a kid, so of course he's going to be spitting jokes. Of course he's going to take it not seriously, and he's going to have fun with it. He's a kid fighting along with adults, so he's really out of place in this battle, and I think it really shows. And not everything he says is supposed to be a joke. He has non-jokey lines. Like I said, I've watched all the Spider-Man scenes a million times by now, and I definitely don't think everything he said was just supposed to be there for comedic
What was in there that made him sound cool? Because everything he said, like people were laughing at. There was not a single thing that he said where we weren't supposed to be laughing.
Well, here's one for example. Here's one off the top of my head. When him and Captain America are fighting one on one, and Captain America's asking him all the things that Tony told him, like tips that he gave him. He told him Tony said to go for his legs because the shield doesn't protect there, and then he talks about how. What else does he say? He says, here's one of his lines that I don't think anyone would have laughed at when he says, "You're right." Or he says you're wrong, but you think you're right. That makes you dangerous. That's why you have to be stopped. That's not a joke. That's a legit line he has. I think I said that almost word for word. That's not supposed to be there for comedic response. He had things that weren't just there for comedy.
Him and Iron Man both came off as like too comedical.
Iron
And
Man or Ant
no,
Man?
I'm sorry, Ant Man. Yeah, Ant Man's like my favorite, my second favorite of all the Avengers. And in this movie, I also thought that he was almost on the same boat as Spider Man, where his like nonstop comedy kind of took away from him.
I think
He was
that's
he was cooler to me than Spider Man because he still seemed more actiony, and Spider Man was, like I said, just a bunch of jokes.
I think, like I've already mentioned, that's just because both of these two are way out of place here. What has Ant Man really done? He was in a heist that went wrong and wound up him fighting a tiny man. That's all he did. Spider Man's just, as we've seen in the movie, helped the girl get her purse back and stopped a car from hitting a bus. That both of them are way out of place, and, you know, they're gonna try and make I felt both of them were in character. They were both just doing what it felt realistic for them to do. Spider-Man makes jokes. We saw him doing that back at his apartment, and he wasn't even just making jokes at his apartment. He gave that kind of close but not close enough line to "with great power comes great responsibility" when he talks about if you have the power, if you can do the things that I can do and you don't, bad things happen because of you. That kind of thing. That wasn't a joke. That was the serious moment and all that. And Ant-Man, he was a jokey character in Ant-Man. I felt that it made perfect sense that both those characters were the way they were.
Ant Man still came off as almost like the dope of the movie, so I wasn't too happy about that.
I don't know what you mean. He kind of came off that way in Ant-Man too.
No, Ant Man, he seemed like he had things pretty much figured out. In Ant Man, the dope of that movie was his friend who
Yeah,
kept trying to get him to go do heists and stuff.
yeah. I'm talking like, he has all those scenes when he's underground and then he shoots up and he's all big and he's all freaked out because the ants are down there. He has a lot of jokey, funny lines. He was definitely in character in this movie. I just think that um, because he wasn't a featured character in this movie, he wasn't a main character in this movie. They didn't take the time to show the serious side of him like they showed in Ant-Man. So they only showed the jokey side in this, which still makes sense for the character. It just he didn't get enough time to do both. The only line that I could actually say Ant-Man said that felt out of character, or felt too comedical for me, was when he turns back to being small after being Giant Man. Then he asks for orange slices. That's the only thing that made no sense to me.
Yeah, that line seemed like a very forced comedic thing that didn't make any sense to me either. I didn't like that, but I did like Ant-Man overall. Um, part of my Spider-Man thing could be that, not being a hardcore comic book guy growing up, I wasn't a comic book kid really, but I remember having one Iron Man comic back in the 1970s. And the only thing I remember about that comic was one Sunday morning sitting on my bed when I was supposed to be getting ready for church and I was distracted reading it and I got in trouble. My dad came in and yelled at me and took the comic away. And that's the only thing I remember about that comic. Outside of that, in the 70s, you had the Incredible Hulk TV show, and Spider-Man seemed to be in a lot of stuff. I think there was a TV show, and when when we were really little, there was a show called The Electric Company that was on like right after Sesame Street on PBS, and Spider-Man would make appearances in that, and we'd all love it, when we were like second or third grade. So I think Spider-Man and Hulk are like the two Marvel characters that stand out to me the most, that I remember the most.
They're like the two that you have soft spots for.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a real sentimental link to those two characters. So anytime Hulk's there, or anytime Spider-Man's there, I love it. And I thought that this Spider-Man was probably more true to what I remember the Spider-Man comics being, where he was just a smart aleck all the time and kind of a smarty, smart mouth kid, more so than like I did like the Tobey Maguire movies a lot, and I thought he was a good character of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, and I especially like the fact in those, and I know you guys don't agree with me, but I especially like the fact that in the Tobey Maguire movies, the webbing came from him. Like his body produced the webbing, so it was always there. I always thought that was kind of cool, rather than having to have a device that shot webs. Because once again, once you know how to make the device, anybody then can have at least the webbing of Spider-Man.
I think that's what adds to the character. I think it took away from the character to have him have organic webs. I think the fact that he makes his web shooters just shows how smart this kid is. Just shows that he was able to do this as I think he's like 15 in the movie. He was able to do this as a 15-year-old, and even Iron Man doesn't know how he did it. So I think it adds to the character.
I can see that point. When the first Spider-Man movie came out with Tobey Maguire and he had the webbing, it was part of him. I just remember thinking that is awesome. That is really cool that he doesn't have to have those shooters. It just comes from him, making him more unique, even more unique. But either way, I was not a fan of who's the second kid, the Andrew something or other,
Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield. For whatever reason, I did not connect with him as Peter Parker or Spider-Man, even though you both know I love Emma Stone and I was totally loving her in the movies. But him, I could never get into as Spider-Man, and this kid I like again. So I think this kid's going to be a good Spider-Man, and I'm looking forward to these new movies with him.
Okay, so we've already talked about Ant-Man, so we're already somewhat into Team Cap, so we don't need to talk about him again. What do you guys think of Captain America himself, Steve Rogers? I thought, like we sort of mentioned, he was way out of character in this movie. In my opinion, I thought it was a complete 180 out of nowhere in this movie, where all of a sudden he just was all for not listening to the government and all just wanted complete freedom, and was fighting for Bucky, this known assassin who's killed tons of people. That I could somewhat understand. He's his friend and all, but you'd think he'd be able to realize, oh man, this guy has killed people. This guy tried to kill me twice. Even in this movie, he tried to kill him. And yet Cap still stands up for him.
Yeah, but do you not remember how that all probably came from the Winter Soldier, when at the very end of the movie, rather than killing Captain America, Bucky saves him, and like he knows that Bucky is still in there and that this isn't who he is permanently. So the fact that he wants to save him makes complete sense to me.
I will tell you this. I remember almost nothing of Captain America 2. And what I do remember of it was that I liked it better than Captain America 1. I actually thought it was a pretty good movie. Captain America 1, I wasn't totally into. I thought it was okay, but I didn't think it was great. The second one, I remember thinking, oh, that was a much better movie, but I remember nothing about it. So for me, I didn't understand who the guy was. I didn't remember anything about him. I didn't know why Captain America was fighting for him. And I agree with Derek. I thought that out of nowhere, this is a character that was all about government service and being in the military. Captain America, part of the United States, whatever the man wants, that's that's what he'll do and that's what he's about. The only defiance I remember out of that character previously was in the first Avengers movie, where he kind of defied orders and went back and found all the weapons that Shield was harboring. But beyond that, there really wasn't anything to me. Even this friendship notion. Maybe I just have to watch The Winter Soldier again because I don't really remember it that well. But it did not. This one did not seem at all realistic to me. That Captain America was not going along with what the government wanted him to do.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't do that, if he's not part of the establishment, he's not Captain America. He's Captain Rogue, or he's Captain I'm my own man, or whatever, but he's not Captain America.
And if you remember, he had to be like pushed into finding all those shield weapons in Avengers. Tony was already working on that, and both Tony and Bruce had to push him into finally going and doing it. So
Yeah, because he didn't want to believe it.
He
That's
didn't-
like he didn't
he
want to
didn't-
believe they were up to anything.
he
evil.
didn't want to. He didn't want to go against the organization he was working with. And I know, Kyle, you're gonna freak out and start screaming like you did last time when we tried to do this about how Shield was taken down by Hydra. But guess what? Now we're not talking about Shield. We're talking about hundreds of government organizations. This is the United Nations. Hundreds of countries coming together to create these Sokovia Accords. Not all of them are going to be infiltrated by Shield, or by Hydra. Not all of them are going to be corrupt. There's always going to be some good thing. That's why America has the checks and balances. That's why we have 3 branches. That's why it works.
Does it always work though?
Yeah. When has
I
it,
don't think so.
when has it not?
Explain to me. We're not going to get into real life politics, but explain to me throughout the Marvel universe how many times the government has done something right for Captain America. How many times they have actually done something.
Well, I mean, there was
to
only the
keep
one
his
time.
faith.
There was only the one time that I don't know. They gave him a super soldier serum to help him join the army. There was that. There was that one time when they fought with him in World War II to take down Red Skull. I don't know. There was that one time when they rescued him from the ice, brought him up, saved his life. What about the time that even after Hydra took over Shield, even after all that, Shield still was around and helped them during Age of Ultron, helped all those people get off Sokovia.
So pretty much everything you just named was from Captain America, the first one.
Captain
Which
America,
would be-
the Avengers, and the Avengers also. The government helped them there. They put together the Avengers. And
Really?
then-
Did they though? Because
Oh,
if I
Jesus
remember
Christ.
correctly, in that one they didn't. They greenlit the nuclear bomb to go out and kill everything that Iron Man had to stop. So if I'm remembering this right, the government almost betrayed them in that movie too.
They weren't trying to betray them. They thought they were doing the right thing. They were just trying to save people, exactly what the Avengers were doing.
Yeah. Okay. So why
And
is,
that wound up saving them in the long run anyways.
why is he going to trust them if they literally tried to nuke them? He knows that they can get the job done if they have their own boundaries. If they choose how things go, he knows that they can get the job done. But when the government tries to take over, they could ruin everything. They sent in a nuke and could have killed so many people, but the Avengers had it under, they had it.
They did not have
So,
it. Go watch the
then
movie.
why?
It shows a
How'd they win?
montage. It shows a montage like 2 seconds before that of the Avengers just getting their butt whooped. It was only because the nuke flew in that Iron Man was able to win. Anyways, what other point you made? You were talking about how the government didn't form the Avengers? Yes, it did. They went around to each
I
of the
never said
Avengers.
that. I
you
never
did
said
say
that.
that. You just argued that. I have it on recording. You said, but did they though? Because if I remember,
No, you said that the government did right by the Avengers in
I
that
said
one,
they.
and I'm saying they didn't.
I did not say that at all.
Yes, you did.
All right. Anyways,
So
Kyle, from your perspective, you thought Captain America's motivations seemed okay, right?
Yeah, if he sees it as he knows how to take care of these situations.
But he clearly doesn't. It gets way out of hand at the beginning of the movie. It
it
blows up a whole
only
bunch of
gets out of
people.
hand. It only gets out of hand because of the unskilled, like trainedness of
The
okay, the untrained Scarlet Witch.
But she is
That's why it
trained.
gets out.
She is trained. She's an Avenger now. We didn't see her get trained, but it was implied at the end of Avengers 2.
How long after Avengers 2 does this movie take place?
Over a year.
Over a year.
Yeah.
She.
Oh yeah, what's your argument for this?
It's the same thing as Captain America's argument, or there's gonna be civilian lives put in danger no matter how you go about it. What would have happened if the government had tried to handle the whole Ultron situation? Do you think they would have been able to stop it? Do you think the government knew what they were dealing with in that movie? Or do
No,
you
the
think
the
that
whole
they-
thing is that Tony created Ultron. So if the government was involved to begin with, Ultron would have never been created, which is why Tony decides to go with the Accords.
That's not the point. The point is, what about the Chitauri? Do you
Yeah, what
It's
about them? The
government-
government actually wound up aiding in taking them all down.
except for not at all? They didn't aid in any
They
way.
shot the
except-
nuke, and Iron Man used the nuke to blow them all up.
Yeah, that certainly sounds like they were the heroes of the whole movie.
Alright, what'd you guys think of Falcon? I thought he was just there. I didn't think he served much of a purpose at all. Nothing?
Yeah, I mean,
I thought he
he
served
was just
the
he was
same
supposed to be there. Yeah, it's
the same role
purpose.
he did in Age of Ultron. He was there to agree with Captain America and then do very little.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I didn't have any great thought about him at all.
He was almost just there to distract the other team.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. Bucky, I don't like Bucky to begin with. I think he's a very unsympathetic character, and I know it's like, he's mind controlled, he can't control it. He's essentially a weapon, but the only thing, the one redeeming thing about him is the post-credit scene when he goes on ice. That was the one thing that made me say, okay, I can somewhat like this guy, but I think he's too far gone. Because he even says he remembers killing all the people. He knows everything he does when he's mind controlled. I think
No.
Yeah, he
doesn't
says
know,
that. He
it's
says
just
that at
he
one point.
remembers.
No, at one
Oh,
point.
he says he knows what he's doing. He
Yeah.
says that he knows
Yeah,
that
but
he could
it's-
not do it. And
he can't control it because he's got those code words that turn him into the Winter Soldier, but he still knows what he's done. He still remembers what he's done. He knows how terrible it is. I think he should have come to that conclusion that he should have been locked up much sooner.
I think he was. He was at that conclusion. He secluded himself into a whole foreign area so that no one would recognize him. No one would get into his head and stuff. So he
Wait,
was
when
ready
does he
for that.
when does he do that? When does he do
the
that?
whole beginning of the movie, he's in seclusion. He's hiding out in that apartment because he doesn't want anyone to be able to find that stuff.
I thought he was hiding out in that apartment because he was framed for the bombing and he knew that he was going to get hunted. Because if you see earlier, before that scene happens, he's walking around buying newspapers out in the open. So I took
But
it
he's
as
all hidden.
I took it as he was only in hiding after the fact.
No, he was in hiding since the end of the Winter Soldier. He left Tony and then he ran off into hiding.
He left Cap.
Oh my god, yeah, he left Cap. There's just too many characters.
Yeah, we already talked about Ant-Man. Bucky, yeah, he's okay. Very unsympathetic in my opinion. Now I'll talk about Hawkeye. I thought he pulled a terrible move joining this fight. He has a family to care for. We know he has a family now. He apparently retired, and his whole motivation for coming back that they say, I've heard theories and I'm starting to agree with them on otherwise why he came back, but his whole reason was that he was just bored of not being an Avenger. And so I don't know, I think it was very I guess you could say irresponsible of him to just say, you know what, I have a family, but maybe I'll die. I'm going to go join this fight.
Yeah, I didn't really understand his motivation for getting back into this thing, and that's a character I know a lot of people like. I just, for me, I don't find him to be all that interesting. So I really didn't care to see him come back into this thing. And frankly, if he's never in another Marvel movie, I'm okay with that too. Not that I have anything against him. I don't think he's a bad character. I just think to me um, he's just not very interesting.
Yeah. So here's the theory that I've heard of why he joined the fight again is because if you remember back to the first or back to Age of Ultron, there's that scene when him and Scarlet Witch are like huddled up in the house together, and they have that conversation where he's like, "I've got a bow and arrow, the city's floating, none of this makes sense, but if you step out that door, you're an Avenger." So then she does, she becomes an Avenger, and then it's ultimately her who's responsible for the people dying in the beginning incident of this movie. So I've heard that he kind of comes back as a defense to help her out, to give her like support, because he's the one who helped her become an Avenger, so he might feel a level of guilt and responsibility for the fact that she was involved in these people's deaths. So yeah, I feel like that makes sense. If they had said it, that would have been better, but they didn't. So people had to come to that conclusion on their own. Um,
I will say this about the most recent Marvel movies. In Age of Ultron, they actually got me to like Hawkeye because before then I didn't like him at all. I thought he was the most annoying character in the whole thing. Um, Age of Ultron, I also started liking the Mark Ruffalo Hulk because I didn't like him after the Edward Norton one. I thought that was an amazing Hulk, and then in the Avengers, they had Mark Ruffalo, and I didn't really like that. But Age of Ultron, he kind of built his way up, and then again in this movie, I never liked Captain America before this one, and in this one, I thought he was a lot better and a much more likable character.
yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about the movie's villain, Baron Zemo, who I have mixed feelings about. I feel like his motivations were very believable. He was a police officer in Sokovia. His whole family was killed, and he keeps listening to that phone message over and over and over again because he's sad that his family's gone. So he decides that, you know what, so many people who are so much stronger, so much better than me have tried to kill the Avengers and they've failed. So instead of trying to kill them myself, I'm just going to try and make them kill each other. And I think he succeeds greatly. I think he tears the Avengers right apart.
Yeah, he definitely splintered them and divided them, and I thought that it was kind of cool. As you guys remember, I was not a big fan of Jesse Eisenberg in Batman vs Superman because to me the Lex Luthor character is a smarter, more devious kind of person like this. What was this guy's name? What was the character? Baron something?
Baron Zemo.
Zemo. I thought he was far more, he's the chess master. He's playing this whole thing, getting these guys to fight each other, take each other out. Um, he was a smarter, more diabolical type villain, more of a Lex Luthor type villain in my view. And I kind of like that. He doesn't have superpowers. He's just a regular guy who ends up manipulating all of these people with amazing powers and technologies and gets them to basically, divided, united they stand, divided they fall. He gets to divide them, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, before you go on, because I don't want to argue about Lex Luthor any more than we already have in the previous podcast, so I'd just like to say, the only thing that because Lex Luthor I felt had a lack of motivation, I still feel that. That's the only thing that I think Baron Zemo has done better than Lex, is he's given a better motivation, a more clear, thought out one, and ultimately his plan is a lot smarter than Lex's in general, so I thought he was a much more likable character even as a villain than Lex was.
I don't get what you guys didn't like about Lex Luthor but liked about this guy because they both were in the same vicinity of what they were.
I literally just said it was the motivation.
Would you listen? Yeah, okay. So the motivation is different, but the way they went about it is almost exactly the same. Where they come up with these long, complicated plans that I don't really understand how they're able to do. like with Lex Luthor writing on the checks and sending them back to
Yeah,
Bruce
that
Wayne.
made no sense.
That made no sense. In this one, the fact that he like had the video of Tony Stark's parents getting killed, and then he was able to put every single piece of this together in order to
Well, he
get them to
didn't-
fight each other.
I think the only
It's
piece.
So
Jesus Christ, Kyle!
so-
Stop screaming.
I'm not screaming.
You're
I'm
like-
talking at normal volume.
Okay, whatever. I think. I don't think he had this
Okay.
whole thing planned out. These are the things that he did to push the fight. He mind controlled Bucky in the facility. Yeah, he did that.
No, it goes back further. It goes back further to where he blows up the.
Okay, yeah, he blows up the United Nation building, so then they think Bucky did it. Okay, that's the very first string he pulls. Then he mind controls him. That way, he makes sure that Tony hates Bucky. Then the next thing he does is he goes and waits by the Winter Soldiers, because he also plants that seed in Bucky's mind. He brings up the fact that there are more than one Winter Soldier, and that way Bucky will want to go and stop them, make sure that they don't get out. So then all he does, he goes and kills them and then waits for them to show up and then plays the tape. That's all he really does. He only does 4
That
things in the
is-
movie.
It's so ridiculously complex that I don't understand how someone like that could think of it. Does that guy? That guy was part of Hydra, correct?
No. Well, I mean, he did get the
So
he
he
did get the
wasn't.
Hydra files, because if you remember, he interrogated that dude from Hydra at the beginning of the movie.
It's so. Like, what if one of those steps didn't work? And
Well, then
Like-
he would have been screwed. Then he would have just
Yeah,
been sitting there
it's-
in a room waiting forever.
it
Well-
just seems too ridiculous.
I
Well,
don't know.
you're assuming he didn't have a backup plan of some.
Yeah, that's
and-
true. He
Here's
probably
here's
did.
the biggest thing was like if Iron Man had stuck to the Accords and not gone after Captain America.
No, he
at-
did stick to the
Right?
Accords. Remember? He did. That's why he went after him at the airport. Or are you talking about later?
No, later when he
Well,
goes
later,
to
later he only does
facility.
that because he finds out that he was wrong, which is a good thing. I think it was great
But
to
what
see
if
that
he
he
didn't?
admits he was wrong.
What if he didn't?
What if he didn't admit that he was wrong? What if he didn't find that out?
Yeah, and he didn't go to the place, and he never saw the tape of the Winter Soldier killing his parents. Then it would have just ended with like everyone coming together. It just the convenience of how that all happened.
I
was-
don't, because it's been a while since we've all seen this movie. I don't quite remember how he finds out about the Winter Soldiers. Do you guys? I think
how
I
the
don't.
guy,
Yeah, I don't remember.
Baron Zemo-
No. How does Tony find out that there are more than one Winter Soldier? That's what I don't remember.
He doesn't. He tracked down.
He does remember. Remember, he does remember, which is why he goes to the prison, talks to Falcon, finds out where Cap went, and then goes to help Cap. But I don't remember how
No,
he
no.
found out.
Here's how that he finds out that the Baron Zemo used the face of the Winter Soldier to try and blame him. So then he realizes, oh, Captain America was right. This wasn't the Winter Soldier. I need to go like help him on whatever he's doing. And that's when he goes and talks to Falcon. He doesn't know about these other ones. He just knows that Baron Zemo had used a mask to make himself look
I'm
like.
pretty sure he did. I
No,
could be wrong.
it's-
I could be wrong. It's been
They
a
just
while.
they found the fake face and they found the dead body. Remember that he found
Oh, that's
the
right. They
actual
found.
guy's dead
Yeah,
body
they found
inside
the dude.
bathtub, and that's how.
No, that's how he knew that Bucky was being mind controlled again. Remember, that's how he knew what was going on. That's how he knew who was pulling the strings. So he was going to help take down Baron Zemo.
It just seems too convenient.
It did play out a little bit that way at the end, because if Tony Stark hadn't shown up, then what would the plan have been? I don't know at that point. But so yeah, that was convenient writing, and it was a convenient turnaround.
Well,
but-
here's the other thing that would have happened. Had Tony not shown up, then Black Panther would have stepped in and wound up killing Bucky anyways. Because remember, Black Panther followed him and was all willing to kill Bucky up until he met Baron Zemo.
but I think Baron.
But I don't think Baron Zemo planned for that.
No, and I think he was more focused on the Avengers in general, and maybe Tony kind of a little singularly because of the whole thing that happened with his family. But so yeah, it could have been a little bit. It was kind of convenient, I suppose, at the end. But I
Yeah.
still think I felt like it was a better, more thoughtful kind of villainous thing where this guy's using his intellect and he's crafting, playing this chess game that they're all falling into at some level. Where I just did not feel that way with Lex Luthor. I felt Lex was very simplistic in his plan. He was a little more kind of like the Joker in the Dark Knight, where the Joker even says in that movie, "Do I look like a guy with a plan? I'm not a schemer like you guys. I'm not a guy with a plan. I just do things." And that's kind of how the Lex Luthor felt to me in Batman versus Superman. Whereas this guy was very diabolical all the way through. He was scheming and plotting and pulling at threads and pushing buttons and making this conflict happen, which I thought was cool. It's not without its flaws. I get that, but
the movie isn't perfect,
yeah.
but I think it was a good one. All right, so now we can just like breeze through the plot.
Yeah.
So it opens with Bucky and the car crash at the beginning, and I know you guys. Did you guys see it coming? Did you guys see that the car crash that it showed multiple times was Tony's parents dying? Because I did.
Not at all.
I didn't either. I didn't see that coming at all.
That blew my mind, and I was like, that's clever as crap right there.
I had only figured it out because there was a scene in Winter Soldier. It was an Easter egg background thing where it mentioned like offhand on a record somewhere on like a file that Bucky had killed the Starks, and so then I had heard rumors that they were going to follow up on that because it was the Russo brothers returning to direct this one. So I heard that. So I figured, okay, yeah, this is going to be a thing that we see in the movie. So then, of course, when I saw this scene, I kind of put two and two together.
I didn't see it coming at all.
So we get the opening scene with the Avengers versus Crossbones when the whole explosion happens. And I know you guys didn't like the way this was directed. I don't think any of us really liked the way this was all shot when it was all shot in shaky cam. I was just happy that it wasn't overly used throughout the movie. That's the only reason that I kind of put it off to the side, made an exception for it, was that it didn't happen throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, the first two or three fights in this movie are so the camera is so shaky. It's such a frantic mess that it's hard to watch. From that point, from like about the midpoint of the movie on, the battle sequences settle down and you can follow it more easily and it's a better movie. The first half of this movie is where I have all my issues. The second half of this movie is where I liked it.
Yeah, I could somewhat see that. So then we cut from there to a scene of Tony Stark. Did Kyle get disconnected?
We lose you, Kyle? Kyle, you there?
Oh, I think we may have lost him.
You there, Kyle?
Yeah,
Okay, why'd you go silent?
my call got ended,
Okay.
so I missed whatever you guys were talking about.
We saw something happen on yours and we were just trying to figure out how to get you back in.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I just had to go back in and rejoin the call.
Okay. So anyways, from here we cut to a scene of it's like a hologram flashback of Tony's last memory with his parents. That's another reason I figured, okay, yeah, Bucky definitely killed his parents. We're gonna see that happen in this movie. Is because we saw his last memory, and I thought that scene was really good. The special effects where Robert Downey Jr. definitely looked like a young Robert Downey Jr. again. I thought that was amazing.
It blew me away. I was watching that just completely in awe because I've seen them do that before, like in the X-Men. I think it was X-Men 3. There's a scene where a younger, not super young, but a younger Professor X and a younger Magneto go and they're talking to somebody and
Jean Grey.
Jean Grey, and they had given him this sort of youthful special effects treatment in the movie, and then they did it again in the second Tron movie where Jeff Bridges played his younger character in that movie, and which of course looks totally different than the way Jeff Bridges looks today. But in both those cases, there was something not quite right about it. In this one, other than his voice seemed a little weird, but just looking at the way they did it, they're getting to a point where I swear they're going to be able to make movies with stars of yesterday looking the way they used to look
I,
because they're going to be able to completely character. They're going to computer generate these guys.
it's gonna be cool because then
Yeah.
we could get movies with people who have been dead for so long. We could start seeing them pop up in movies again. That'd be cool.
Or the best thing, Derek, is we could get some new original Star Trek shows with the original characters back looking young again. We could get a season 4 of the original series potentially.
No.
Derek Silver.
So here's the comparison I made. Was this reminded me a lot of in the beginning of Terminator Genesis when they go back in time and you see the young Arnold and he looked just like he did back in the time of Terminator 1. That's the comparison I made, is that it was along the same lines where it looked super good, and
Yeah, I thought the young
I think it's
I
even
th-
better in this movie.
I do too, and I thought the young Arnold stuff in Terminator Genesis was pretty darn good. I thought that was a they're getting really really close on this technology, and it's exciting.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, people in the theaters were laughing when we went and saw this movie when you saw young Tony, but I also was because I thought it looked ridiculous, and then I pulled up a picture of him from one of his first movies, and they had it spot on. I didn't realize how good they actually made it.
Yeah, it was incredible. It blew me away. It was like looking at him from the 80s. And the only problem, like I say, was the voice. The voice seemed like it was him talking but sped up to make it sound more youthful.
Yeah, I think
And
that's what they did with whoever does the voice of C-3PO in Force Awakens, that kind of thing.
uh, to me didn't hold up very well. They got to my prediction, boys, just off topic a little bit, is that one day they're going to be able to make some sort of voice synthesizers. They're going to be able to analyze the patterns and tones of a person's voice. And you'd be able to then recreate that kind of somebody would say a line and it'll come back out sounding like somebody else. And when they get there and they match that with this younger special effects technology, the sky's the limit for what they are going to be able to do. Like you say, they can bring back actors that have been dead for however long, and it could be pretty cool. Could be very
Yeah, I'm sure
interesting.
they're working on that. So, someday. Alright, so from here we get the introduction of the Sokovia Accords when everyone's sitting around a table debating about it. There's not much to say about that. Um, then we see the UN bombing. That's where T'Challa, I think that's his name, the guy who is Black Panther, that's where his father dies. He takes the ring, which has some sort of symbolic meaning that we'll find out in the Black Panther movie because they focused on it a lot. So he takes this ring, and then now he is both the warrior defender of Wakanda, his country, which is the Black Panther, and he's the king. So now he has that mantle. Um, and then a big fight happens where Bucky and Cap have a huge fight going down. Well, they don't fight each other, but they fight all these SWAT officers who are coming to kill Bucky. They fight. It's this big stairwell fight, and it's pretty cool. It leads into a chase scene where um, Bucky is being chased by Black Panther, who's being chased by Captain America, and then Falcon's flying around in the mix trying to stop it all. That scene I thought was really cool. It was just not shot necessarily as good as it could have been, but still I liked it. Um, what'd you guys think about all that?
Yeah, I'm with you. The plot in the first part of this movie I thought was extremely confusing, and I did not like the way the action sequences were shot. But there were some cool things, like when the girl, forgive me, I forget these characters, but when the girl who's got all the super energy, when she blows up that building accidentally,
Yeah,
um, you know, that had a very 9/11 feel to me. I mean, that was like being on the streets of New York when those buildings were on fire and exploding and all that. And I thought it was very well done. I thought it was done really well in Batman vs Superman, where you kind of got that look of the carnage from down below. But generally speaking, the first half of this movie does not hold up well for me.
yeah, I can kind of see that, like I said. So from here, they're all taken into kind of a jail where Bucky is then mind controlled by Baron Zemo and escapes. There's a big battle that comes out where Iron Man, I like that scene when Iron Man only has the glove hand and then he shoots him with the sonic blast and then they all get into a big fight. Um, Then there's a recruiting stage where, like, Captain America recruits Ant-Man, um, Iron Man recruits, he recruits Black Panther, and then he goes and gets Spider-Man. We see our very first introduction to Tom Holland Spider-Man, and we see Aunt May and how Tony's always hitting on her, and that was all really funny. And then we saw the original Spider-Man suit before Tony made one for him, and it looked ridiculous. It had those big goggles, and I thought
Wasn't
that was all
that
really funny.
It kind of looked like the original one from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans, where he's just got like the ski mask and like.
A little. All he did was
That's-
put on a wrestling ski mask. This one he had it was something like that, but then he also put on
Other than the goggles,
he put on the goggles, and I like the excuse or the reason for that was because he was saying it was like dull. He had to like kind of dull his senses because according to him they're always on like notch 11, and he was trying to take it down a little bit by blinding some of it out with those goggles. That way he could focus, and I like that because it shows he doesn't know how to control his powers, which comes into play later somewhat when he doesn't really know how to work his spidey senses yet. So I think we'll be seeing a little bit more of that in the upcoming Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, this is this is the part of the movie where from this point forward I thought it was great.
Yeah. Um, so from here we get the best scene in the movie, probably one of my favorite scenes in the entire MCU, which is that amazing airport battle. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that was truly a an amazing sequence. Um, everybody's kind of got their spot. Everybody's doing their thing. The effects are amazing. When Ant-Man grows giant, and he's stepping around airplanes and pulling wings off planes to hit people. I mean, you just cannot. It has not gotten better than that up to this point.
Yeah, I don't think there's any fight that compares to that. I think
No.
that is really what made this movie probably my favorite MCU movie, other than maybe the Avengers, just for like almost nostalgic reasons. Where it's like the Avengers was the first of its kind. It was very special to me, and I could remember playing on playgrounds with my neighbor, and we would be the Avengers, and it was great. So
Yeah, I thought the first Avengers movie was awesome, and this movie and this
movie-
fight was like right in that vein of it. Yeah,
yeah, this movie.
I thought this fight
compares.
was better than any other fight.
yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I agree. But I mean, when the Chitauri come through that void and they're chasing them through the buildings of New York and all that, that's a pretty amazing scene.
Yeah.
But I did like this one better. I did like the characters that we know and the interactions, and again, the tone was not dark and evil. It was serious but fun at the same time.
Yeah, that's one of my problems with this scene is that I did think it was an amazing scene. I thought the action was great. I love it. I would watch it 100 times, but the stakes weren't there for me. It just felt like they were kind of almost play fighting. It was like, yeah, they were fighting, but you felt like even Iron Man says it at the beginning when he lands. He goes, "Help a bro out, man." That's a legit line he says to Captain America. He's like, just turn yourself in. I don't want to have to fight you, because at that point all he's trying to do is take him to jail. He's not trying to kill him. There's no high stakes involved, which is why I think it's really great when Vision accidentally shoots down War Machine and then he falls into the ground. I'll talk about my problem with that in a second. When he falls into the ground, I love how both Falcon and Iron Man go to him. There's both people from both teams trying to help him, and yeah, I thought it was good. The stakes weren't too high. That's my problem. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel any fear for anyone in that scene.
Yeah,
But-
it definitely wasn't a life and death
Yeah.
struggle, but to me, that's the difference again between the Marvel universe and the DC. Although the fight at the end,
The fight
It's
at the
dark.
end, there's
That's
a
it's
lot.
dark.
Yeah, there's a lot of heart in that scene. But yeah, I thought this scene was great when Spider-Man pulls out the what was it, the Empire Strikes Back tactics or whatever, when he swings around Giant Man's legs and knocks him down. I thought that was great. That's one of the things that when I mentioned that he couldn't really control his spider senses, because you'd think he'd know the Giant Man was swinging his hand, but when he gets hit by it, it takes him off guard, and that's what knocks him out of the fight. So I don't think he really knows what's going on with his spider senses yet. The other thing I really liked the fight between Spider-Man and Captain America. How there's that like playful dialogue between them, and Captain America's like, "You got a lot of heart, kid. Where are you from?" And he's like, "Brooklyn." He's like, "Queens," and they have that thing. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I did too.
Um, yeah. So the airport battle was great. Then we cut to like Baron Zemo and the Winter Soldiers, and we find out that Tony's parents were killed by the Winter Soldier, which starts by far the most intense scene of the movie, probably the most intense scene of the whole universe so far, is when the three of them are going at it, and that's when the stakes are raised real high, and Tony blows off Winter Soldier's arm. I thought that was great. He blows off the metal arm, and then he takes him down, and then Captain America just beats the crap out of him, and so he has to analyze the fight patterns of Captain America in order to have a comeback, and he still winds up losing. I thought that was a very intense scene.
Yeah, I agree. That was pretty dark and pretty real.
Yeah,
I was afraid for Iron Man's life in that scene.
me too. I felt so bad for Iron Man because he was fighting to avenge his parents' death, and he just gets his butt whooped. He can't even compete. Captain America's just way more, almost aggressive in his fight style, and
Yeah, he is, but but by the same token, once his technology catches up, he almost defeats Captain America. It was the Winter Soldier that was able to distract him at the very end that gave Captain America the leg up that he needed to finally defeat Iron Man, because Iron Man almost won that fight.
yeah, that's true. And I've heard it's a great scene from the Civil War comic books when Captain America can't fight Iron Man at all, because this is what something I think would have been cool to see in the movie. I guess throughout all of the movies, every time Captain America and Iron Man fought together, Iron Man had secretly been scanning his fight patterns. I guess he'd scanned everyone's fight patterns in order to have a comeback if they were to ever fight him. So he knew every move, every punch they ever threw, so he knew exactly how to counter them.
Oh, that is cool.
So I thought that would have been great to see in the movie, but they didn't. They sort of went with it. They didn't go with it really how they should have. Um, yeah, this scene, and then it ends where where Captain America's just beating down on him with the shield. He knocks Iron Man's helmet off, and right there I was worried that he was gonna slam it into his face and kill him, as I'm sure everyone was. But instead he slams it into the arc reactor, shutting down the Iron Man suit, and then he goes back, and it looks like he's gonna push it down and just slam it through his chest and kill him, but he actually pulls the shield out. Both those times, my heart just dropped. I thought I was about to watch Iron Man die right in front of me.
I did too. I totally fell into that.
Yeah. Anything you want to say, Kyle? You've been quite quiet, just typing the whole time.
No, I think you guys are pretty much hitting it.
Yep. So that brings us pretty much to the end of the movie, where Captain America eventually drops the shield because Tony says that it was his dad made the shield and he doesn't deserve it, and Cap listens. Then he off-screen breaks all his friends out of that jail that Tony had. I don't think Tony put them there, but that they had been put in, and yeah. Then we get that scene where Cap goes into freeze, or where Bucky goes into freezing. We see that Rhodes is doing okay. He's got these bionic legs pretty much, and yeah. And then there's that weird Spider-Man scene at the end when he had the flashlight on his web shooter, which
Right.
I guess that was a comic book thing where, or in the early comics, he used to use that as a flashlight, and it would scan people and tell them if they were friendly or not, or something weird. I don't know what it was. But just one last key note about that Spider-Man scene that I think you'll like, Dad, is if you paid attention, he starts itching his wrist a lot and says that his wrist is really itchy. So what I've heard is speculation that the Russo brothers were testing out to see if people liked the new web shooters, and if not, if it was received really, like, if poorly, if no one liked it, then that was set up for the organic web shooters, which would come from him. So if that's true, then I could see that being pretty cool.
Yeah, that is. That is. Well, I guess to wrap up, there's a couple comments is for me is number one. Well, what would you guys rate this movie out of a scale of 1 to 10? Where do you guys see it?
9 out of 10. I thought this was a near perfect movie. The action was great. See it for that airport fight alone. If you haven't seen it already, I don't know why you wouldn't. This is like 3 weeks after the movie came out. See it for that airport fight alone. It's a great movie.
I would probably go 7.5 out of 10. It was good. It was not one of my favorite Marvel movies. It wasn't. It was still a good movie though.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 5 out of 10 because I felt it was an uneven movie. The first half of it relied so much on you having to know what came before, and I did not like the way the action sequences were shot. So to me, the first half of this movie is kind of a waste,
Kind of ruins
but
it.
it does to me. But once you get into the recruiting part and Spider-Man comes in and you get the big battle, from that point forward, I loved it. And I agree, Derek, if you see this movie for no other reason than the airport battle, it's a good reason to see it. So to me, it was a 5 out of 10. I think they've done a lot better with Marvel in the past. I think they're getting too many characters in these, and it's getting too hard to follow. But it still definitely had its good parts.
So I guess
Um,
just one final question I'd like to ask you both. Are you looking forward to the future of the MCU? Are you guys looking forward to the new Doctor Strange movie coming out?
So everything you've been hearing me typing is set up for us talking about this in future podcasts, and I actually have the whole Marvel timeline up to what they've released written down. So next is Doctor Strange,
Yeah.
and then we've got Guardians of the Galaxy 2, a Wolverine sequel, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok, Deadpool 2, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War Part 1, an untitled Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, Avengers Infinity War 2, and then Inhumans as far as they've released. But I know they've got some.
I'm pretty sure
like-
Inhumans was canceled. I don't think they're doing that
It
anymore.
it still shows it.
If you pulled the picture off Google, it's probably an old picture.
But yeah, and then on top of that, you've got others that they just don't have like release dates for. And
Yeah,
stuff.
they have
Ant-Man and Wasp movie at some point.
yeah. And did you already mention Captain Marvel?
Yeah.
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 That's
in between the two Infinity War. I think that's weird how they're having it movies in between Infinity Wars.
Well, see, I did too, and then I was looking at the DC timeline, and they've actually got Justice League Part 1, and then in between that, you have The Flash,
Yeah,
Aquaman,
they have some of those
Shazam.
solo movies thrown in there randomly.
All three of those movies are in between Justice League Part 1 and 2, so.
Yeah, I'm worried for the DC universe. I think it's not going to be good.
Well-
I hope they get new directors and all that stuff, but
I'm with you. I think the DC's got more work ahead of them than Marvel does. I think Marvel might be getting a little bit too out there in some respects, but I am still excited. I still want to see where this all goes and what other kind of dazzling things they come up with, because every one of these movies typically has something that's pretty cool. One thing I did notice in this movie, though, that you guys probably would not have known or cared about, but I just want to throw it out there. So who's the general that came back from Hulk that's in this one again?
General Ross.
Ross, and he's a senator now, or he's part of the. I think he's a senator. He's
He's
he's a secretary of defense
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
Yeah. So I thought what I picked up on, and this I'm sure was completely coincidental, but back in the 1980s, there was this movie that came out called Broadcast News, and it was a really interesting look at television news and the inner workings, and it was kind of a character thing. It was sort of a love triangle movie, and one of the male leads was William Hurt, who plays General Ross. The female who's in this love triangle is Holly Hunter, and she was the woman in Batman vs Superman who was the senator trying to get basically controls over Superman. So I just thought it was interesting that both Holly Hunter and William Hurt in both of these universes kind of played the same character. They were each the one trying to rein in the powers of these guys. Again, I'm sure it's just complete coincidence, but I haven't seen Holly Hunter in a lot of stuff over the last many years. And every time I do see her, I always think of Broadcast News. And so it just struck me interesting that they were both, again, kind of playing the same character from a real iconic 80s movie. The other last observation I want to have, and this is a very important for both of you, is the moral of the story that I took from this, which is when you look at the Black Panther arc and you look at the Tony Stark arc, it clearly says that if something bad ever happens to your dad, you have to do something about it, and you boys need to remember that. That's it's my final. That's what I took away from it. Anyhow, I'm not totally sure if that's what they intended, but that was my takeaway. Always protect your dad and take care of. Go after the
Even
people
though
that
both the two people you're talking about didn't do it successfully, Black Panther gave up and Tony Stark lost the fight.
My expectation for you boys is you have to try like those guys.
Okay. Yep, sure. Alright, thank you all for listening to the second episode, the super late second episode of the Conflict of Interest Generations podcast. I'm Derek.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Jim.
See y'all next time.